My name is Avery Cole. I'm 29 years old, and on the night of my birthday, my parents let themselves into my apartment without knocking. They dropped a folder on my kitchen table as casually as someone tossing down a grocery receipt. Inside was a withdrawal slip for $2.9 million money they believed belonged to me. Money they took to secure my sister's future. My father laughed. My mother said I would have wasted it anyway. But what they didn't know was that none of it was real. Before I go on, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by your own family. Stories like mine aren't rare, they're just rarely spoken out loud. If any part of this already feels too familiar, stay with me. What happened next changed everything. I didn't grow up in a loud household, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that pressed against the walls, thick and stale, like the air hadn't moved in years. I learned early that silence could choke you just as much as screaming. And most nights I sat quietly at the dinner table while my parents filled the room with their soft, curated affection for my sister Harper. I was 11 the first time I understood the difference between being loved and being useful. Mom placed a plate in front of Harper mashed potatoes shaped like a heart, extra butter melting into the ridges. Then she set mine down without looking the portion smaller, the plate slightly chipped. Harper swung her legs humming while Dad told her she had the kind of spark you can't teach. I remember staring at my fork feeling invisible, despite sitting right there. The kitchen smelled like garlic bread, but all I tasted was metal and smoke from the burnt edges Mom had scraped into the trash. I didn't say anything. I swallowed it, literally and emotionally. It was deeper than I realized. Years passed in the same rhythm. Harper's shining a little brighter, me shrinking a little smaller. One Thanksgiving stands out. I must have been 13. Snow drifted outside in soft sheets catching on the window frames. Inside, Mom handed Harper a glossy box with gold wrapping paper. New art supplies. Professional ones. "Because you're gifted?" she said. My own gift was a pair of socks. Dad ruffled my hair like he was rewarding a pet for good behavior. I forced a smile, the kind that made my cheeks hurt. "Say thank you," he said. I did. But inside, something wilted. Still, the worst moments weren't the gifts. It was what they didn't notice. The way they never asked how school was going. The way they forgot the small things about me, my favorite color. The competitions I entered, the books I loved. They knew everything about Harper. What she ate, what she dreamed of, what she feared. For me, they knew just enough to assign tasks. Avery, fix the Wi-Fi. Avery, run to the store. Avery, help your sister with her project. Always functional, never emotional. When I turned 16, I took a part-time job at a grocery store. Early mornings, stocking shelves, late nights, sweeping floors. I saved every dollar, keeping a small envelope hidden under my mattress. I wanted something that was mine, untouched, unclaimed. But one morning, the envelope was gone. Dad stood in my doorway, jangling his keys casual like it was no big deal. "I needed it for something important," he said. I remember blinking at him, trying to understand. Then later that week, Harper walked into the house with a new easel and fresh canvases. She twirled, showing them off. "Dad said I deserved something nice after everything I've been through." She didn't even know what everything meant. She just accepted it. Mom called it family sharing. I called it theft. But I didn't argue. I learned it never helped. I swallowed it again, letting the bitterness settle low in my throat. College was supposed to be different, or at least that's what I told myself. At 21, I won a major scholarship and a tech innovation award for a security program I built from scratch. There was a ceremony, bright lights, cold microphones, stiff chairs. My parents didn't come. They told me they were busy helping Harper prepare for an art show. When I returned home, the certificate was still warm from the printer. Mom didn't even look up from slicing strawberries. "You'll use the prize money for Harper's studio upgrade, right?" she said like it was already decided. "She needs better lighting if she's going to be successful." Dad nodded at the counter. "It's all for the family." I felt something crack inside. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a hairline fracture that would one day split wide open. The next morning, I transferred the money without arguing. Harper hugged me briefly. "You're the best sister ever," she said. But her eyes were already drifting elsewhere, scanning her reflection in the microwave door. Around the same time, I overheard a conversation when I wasn't supposed to. I'd come home early and paused in the hallway. Their voices drifted through the cracked door to the dining room. Mom whispered Avery will always handle herself. She doesn't need us. Dad laughed low and dismissive. Yeah, Harper's the one who needs real help. I felt my chest tighten like someone had wrapped a wire around my ribs and pulled. I didn't move, didn't breathe. That single moment explained every bruise my childhood left behind, and somehow knowing the truth didn't make it hurt any less. I carried that line with me through every year that followed. Harper needs help. Avery doesn't. Harper is fragile. Avery is durable. Harper deserves investment. Avery can survive without it. A script they never questioned. A belief they never even noticed they'd built. And I kept swallowing everything they handed me, not knowing those swallowed pieces were quietly sharpening into something else entirely. By the time I graduated, I had become an expert at being unnoticed. It sounds dramatic, but it was more like muscle memory. I learned to move in ways that didn't disturb anything, to speak only when asked, to keep accomplishments small so no one would take them from me. And when I entered the tech world's cybersecurity forensics encryption, it all felt strangely familiar. Patterns, hidden data, undetected movement. The quiet work, the background logic. It was the first environment where being invisible didn't hurt. It paid. My early 20s were a blur of late nights in front of glowing screens, half-empty coffee cups, cold pizza, and the hum of servers. I learned to read logs the way some people read body language, tiny inconsistencies, suspicious behavior, unusual access patterns. Coworkers joked that nothing got past me. They didn't know the truth. I'd spent my entire life tracking what people said and didn't say, did and didn't do. Cybersecurity was just a digital version of my childhood. While I carved out my career, Harper floated. One business idea after another. Painting classes, candle shops, jewelry, making a podcast that lasted 3 episodes. Each time she failed, my parents treated it like a tragedy. The world is cruel to artists, my mother said after Harper quit her 3rd job in a year. She just needs space to grow. Space, money, time. All of it taken from me in pieces. I watched Harper post photos smiling in coffee shops holding new supplies, new hopes, new plans. Meanwhile, I was skipping nights out wearing the same pair of boots for 3 winters, packing leftovers into small containers so nothing went to waste. My parents never asked why I rarely visited. They assumed I was busy. They assumed I was fine. They assumed I didn't need anything. One memory still sits with me like a shard of glass. I had just gotten my first promotion, a big one. A raise, a new office, my own team. I told my parents weeks in advance, "Do you want to come to the celebration?" "It's nothing huge, but..." Mom cut me off. "Sweetie, Harper has a gallery preview that day. You know how emotional she gets. We can't disappoint her." I nodded, of course. How selfish of me to even ask. After the ceremony, I stood alone in a hallway decorated with company posters. My coworkers are laughing in clusters, clinking glasses. I held my small paper cup of sparkling cider and stared at my phone. One text from my dad. "Congrats. Can you help with some bills this month?" He sent a screenshot. Utilities, car insurance, a temporary loan they'd been meaning to ask about. I remember the cheap plastic cup trembling slightly in my hand. I swallowed that too. Before I knew it, years passed. I turned 26, then 27, then 28. My savings grew slowly, small transfers, steady deposits. It was the one thing I protected viciously. My account was clean, quiet, untouched by anyone but me. I checked it like a ritual. Not because I needed the money, but because it proved I existed outside my family's shadow. Then came the night that changed everything. 3 years before my 29th birthday, I found my father rummaging through boxes in their garage during a visit. Old tax papers, worn-out binders, folders stuffed with receipts. He always had a habit of digging through things that didn't belong to him. He looked up when he noticed me standing in the doorway. "You still bank at the same place, right?" he asked casually. "Just wondering. You know, for family planning." The way he said it, planning, made the back of my neck prickle. I didn't know what he was planning. Not exactly. But I knew enough to start preparing. That night, back in my apartment, I sat with my laptop and created a parallel account. A shadow version of my real savings. Same deposit schedule, same amounts, same patterns, perfectly mirrored. clean enough to look legitimate, suspicious enough to trigger automated fraud detection if accessed incorrectly, and completely disconnected from my real life. It became my quiet rebellion, my secret boundary. At work, I refined it with the same precision I used on threat analysis. I coded behavioral triggers, logged every fake transfer, built an audit trail that looked natural but held subtle red flags only a compliance officer, or I, would notice. It was like constructing a digital tripwire around my own existence. I didn't know when it would be used, or by whom. But something told me it would matter later. I just didn't expect the blow to come on my birthday. Years of being overlooked had taught me one crucial lesson. Silence is a weapon, and I was finally learning how to use it. The weeks leading up to my 29th birthday felt strangely heavy, like the air itself was carrying some warning I couldn't read yet. My life looked stable from the outside. Steady job, steady routine, steady silence. But something under the surface had begun to shift. Patterns at work, calls from my parents, small flashes of Harper's messages. Like static before a storm, it started subtly. My father began checking in more often, though not about me. Never about me. He called once on a Tuesday evening, catching me just as I stepped out of the office. The air outside smelled like hot pavement, and I remember adjusting my bag on my shoulder as I answered. "Avery," he said. No hello, no warmth. Just my name, like a command. "Do you know anything about credit limits?" "Your mother and I are having a little issue." "What kind of issue?" "Bank crap," he said. "They keep lowering the limit. It's ridiculous. Harper needs supplies for her new business idea, and we're short this month. We'll pay you back." He said it so casually, like asking me for money was the most natural thing in the world. "How much is short?" I asked. "A couple of thousand. Nothing big for someone like you. Someone like me. Someone who doesn't need anything. Someone who exists only to patch the holes in everyone else's life." I transferred it that night. And yes, I swallowed the bitterness again, but this time it scratched deeper going down. A week later, Harper texted me. Her messages always came in bursts, as if she typed while pacing in front of a mirror. "Hey, can you help me with something small? Just a tiny loan. Promise I'll pay." Then Dad said, "You have a special account anyway. He said you'd understand." I stared at that line for a full minute, the blue light of my phone turning the apartment cold. A special account. He'd already started sniffing, testing, guessing, and now Harper was repeating it like it was a fact. I typed back, "What account?" Her reply came fast, "IDK." "Dad just said you're fine." I didn't know it then, but that small text would become a thread unraveling everything. At work the next day, I got an email that confirmed my suspicion wasn't paranoia. An automated alert from our internal system, unauthorized login attempt flagged. Origin, an outdated device previously assigned to me. My stomach tightened. Not fear, clarity. My father still had my old laptop. I'd given it to my parents years ago, thinking they'd use it for online bills or watching cooking videos on YouTube. I forgot it carried saved credentials that a less careful person might attempt to access out of curiosity or entitlement. I sat at my desk staring at the screen as coworkers passed behind me laughing about weekend plans. In the reflection on my monitor, I saw my own expression shift. Something cold settled behind my eyes. Something familiar. When Noah walked by, he paused, studying me quietly. He had that annoying ability to read micro-expressions, the kind that made me feel seen in ways I wasn't used to. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah, I lied, we got a weird flag." He nodded like he could tell there was more, but he never pushed. That was one of the few reasons I could stand being around him. I spent the next lunch break in a small conference room, blinds down, phone on the table. I dialed Marissa, my lawyer. She picked up on the first ring. "Avery. They're trying to access something," I said quietly. My old laptop pinged a login attempt. Marissa exhaled through her teeth, the kind of controlled annoyance only attorneys have mastered. "The decoy account, not directly, but they're circling it." "Good," she said. "That means the triggers will work. Let me know the moment anything actually moves." I ended the call feeling something unexpected. Not fear, not anger. Alignment. Like all the threads of my life, every humiliation, every swallowed slight, every ignored achievement were braiding themselves into one sharp rope. That night, I opened the decoy account on my laptop. The numbers glowed on my screen like a trapdoor waiting for weight. Everything looked normal. My perfectly mirrored transaction history, the deposits arranged in natural rhythms, the absence of any personal financial fingerprints, a facade that could fool anyone who wasn't looking closely. And my parents had never looked closely at anything that belonged to me. For days, things grew quiet again. Too quiet. The calm before impact. Then the bills started appearing. My father forwarded overdue notices explaining them away with phrases like family emergencies and temporary setbacks. My mother sent long, guilt-laced paragraphs about stress about Harper's anxiety, about how hard it was to keep the family afloat. One message ended with, "You don't want your sister to feel abandoned, do you?" The word abandoned hit me like a slap. I stared at it for so long the screen dimmed. When had I ever abandoned them? When had I ever done anything except bend until my spine felt like cracking glass, but I didn't respond? Not yet. A few days later, Harper texted again. This time, at midnight. "Avery, please don't ignore me. I know I mess up. Dad said you're being cold, can you help one more time?" There was desperation there, but also something slippery, something that smelled like manipulation she didn't even realize she'd learned by imitation. I typed back, "What did he tell you exactly?" Her typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "That you're doing fine. That you always do. That you have more than enough." And I understood. My parents weren't just circling my finances. They were softening the story, preparing the narrative, priming Harper, priming themselves. I didn't reply. 3 days before my birthday, another email arrived from the bank. Not mine, theirs. A forwarded notice from my father declined payment attempts, insufficient funds across multiple accounts, suspicious activity review pending. He didn't write a message, just forwarded it with the subject line, "Fix this," as if I were an employee, as if I were responsible for the structure they'd built out of entitlement and lies. That was when I stopped checking my phone, because I knew the next message, the one that would break the surface, was coming. And when it arrived, I was ready. The morning of my birthday, I woke before sunrise. Not because I was excited, celebrations had long stopped meaning anything, but because something in my body felt alert, as if some inner alarm had been slowly counting down to this exact day. The apartment was dim and blue, early dawn seeping through the blinds. My coffee tasted burnt bitter, like it already knew the day would not end softly. At 9:13 a.m., my father called. I didn't pick up. At 9:15, he called again. At 9:16, my mother joined in. By 9:20, Harper texted, "Dad is losing it. Answer him." I placed my phone face down and continued working on a report for a client, decrypting a corrupted file full of access logs. It was almost funny how soothing it felt to comb through the suspicious patterns of strangers while my own family was leaving digital fingerprints all over the trap I'd built for them. The silence broke at noon, a buzzer, sharp, insistent. Then binging. Avery opened the door. Now I didn't rush. I didn't even stand immediately. I walked slowly to the door, each step steady, deliberate. When I opened it, Richard Cole pushed past me without asking. My mother followed her heels, clicking against the hardwood like tiny hammers. They didn't say happy birthday. They didn't even look around the apartment I'd worked years to afford. My father threw a folder onto the table so hard it slid to the edge and nearly fell. "There," he said. "Your issue. Fix it." My stomach tightened, not with fear but with recognition. This was the shift I had been waiting for. The moment where entitlement turned into demand, where demand turned into trespass. "What is this?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what it was. "You know what it is," he snapped. "The bank froze the account. Your account. The one with the money we used for Harper's future. They're asking questions. About you." He said it like I had wronged him. Mom crossed her arms. "They said the activity was suspicious. They're implying fraud. Do you understand how humiliating this is for us?" Humiliating. Not wrong. Not criminal. Just humiliating. I opened the folder. There it was. The withdrawal confirmation. Every cent of the $2.9 million gone. My handwriting is forged on one line, their signatures messy on another. The paper shook slightly, not from my hand, but from the charge in the room. "You took everything," I said quietly. Dad scoffed. "We didn't take everything. You still have your job, your career. You've always had more than enough." Mom stepped closer. "You weren't using that money anyway. It was sitting there collecting dust. Harper needs support. She's fragile." Something inside me flickered. For a moment I felt 11 again, forgotten at the dinner table. 16 again, staring at the empty space under my mattress. 21 again, giving up my scholarship award while my mother sliced strawberries. But then the flicker died and something colder took its place. "You shouldn't have touched it," I said. Dad slammed his palm on the table. "Don't start, Avery. We know you. We know how to handle things for you. And now you're going to undo whatever mess you caused with your systems, my expertise. The very thing they'd never once acknowledged as real." Mom's voice sharpened. "You're being dramatic. Call the bank. Tell them it was your signature. Tell them to unfreeze the funds." I looked at her. Really looked. Perfect hair. Perfect blouse. Perfect expression of wounded martyrdom. "No," I said. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated softer. "I'm not fixing anything." Harper chose that moment to text again. "Avery, please. Mom's freaking out. Just help them, please." Dad grabbed the folder, waving it in my face. "Don't play innocent with me. We know you have more. You always have more. We just need access back. You can't hoard money while your family suffers." Hoard! As if my entire life hadn't been a ledger of sacrifices. I took a slow breath. "I don't have anything else for you." Dad's face reddened. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a stack of printed emails. "Then explain this." "They said there's a pattern of irregular transfers. Someone triggered a federal review. They think we're laundering money." And why, I asked, do you think they believe that? He hesitated just half a second, but it was enough. Mom stepped between us. "Avery, this needs to be fixed today, right now. We can't have investigators looking into our family. This could ruin Harper's career, her future, her needs, always." My heartbeat slowed. Not sped, slowed. Everything inside me aligned sharp and still like a locked-in target. "You touched something you shouldn't have touched," I said quietly. Dad laughed short, mocking the same laugh he'd used when he stole my savings at 16. "Oh, please, stop acting like some hacker from a movie. You're still our daughter. Don't forget that." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said. "Have you?" Mom exhaled through her nose. "Avery, we gave you everything." And there it was. The final straw. The delusion. The lie. I picked up the folder, tapped it once against the table to straighten the papers, then set it down again carefully. "You need to leave," I said. Dad's jaw clenched. "We're not going anywhere until you fix this." "I won't be fixing anything," I said. "Not this time." He stared at me. "Avery, don't be stupid." But I wasn't being stupid. I was being precise. Because I knew something they didn't. Something they never imagined possible. The real savings, the real 10 years of my life were untouched. And the account they drained was a tripwire designed exactly for people like them. My parents left my apartment that day with tight jaws and stiff shoulders, the folder clutched in my father's fist like a weapon he didn't know how to use. The door slammed behind them so hard the frame rattled. For a long time I just stood there watching the dust float in the slice of afternoon light. My birthday candle, still on the counter from the night before, leaned to one side, a small curl of wax hardened mid-drip. Everything was quiet except the refrigerator humming like it was trying to fill the silence for me. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I didn't think about calling them back. I simply made coffee, sat down with my laptop, and began documenting every piece of evidence. The flagged login attempt, the unauthorized withdrawal, the forged signature, the transaction timeline. I wasn't frantic. I was surgical. Years of cybersecurity work had trained me for moments like this. Moments when the truth wasn't loud, just precise. By sunset, the audit triggers had already rolled into motion. The first notification hit at 7:12 p.m. Unusual activity detected. Review pending. The message wasn't mine, it was forwarded from my father's email. He must have received a similar alert. I imagined him glaring at the screen, veins tightening around his temples, searching for someone to blame. And he would always land on the same person. Me. By 9 p.m. The second notification arrived: temporary account freeze initiated. I didn't respond to any of their calls. My phone vibrated across the countertop until it fell silent. When the ringing stopped, the night felt even colder. The next morning, sunlight cut through my blinds in harsh white stripes. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Then another. Then another. I clicked the first. Local couple under federal review for suspected financial misconduct. The headline sat above a still frame of my parents standing in their driveway. My father's face red and twisted, my mother's hand raised to shield herself from reporters. Behind them, the manicured lawn, the clean white siding, the neat porch chairs, all of it looked like a backdrop in a play that was finally crumbling. I turned on the TV. The room glowed blue, washing over my walls, my furniture, my own hands. The volume was low, but I could hear the tension in every reporter's voice. My father was arguing with someone off camera. My mother was tearing up her voice, cracking about misunderstandings and private matters. Neighbors whispered behind them, faces blurred but curious. I sat perfectly still, coffee cooling in my palms, watching my family unravel in real time. Then came the knock. Sharp, hard, almost frantic. I opened the door and found my mother standing on the threshold. Her hair was unbrushed, mascara smudged under her eyes, perfume mixed with the sour smell of panic. She pushed past me without waiting for permission. "Avery, listen to me," she said, pacing the length of my living room like she couldn't get any oxygen. "Investigators came to the house. They asked about wire transfers, suspicious withdrawals. They said your name was involved. Your father almost passed out." I leaned against the counter. "Why are you telling me this?" Her voice cracked. "Because you can fix it." I shook my head. "No, I can't." She stopped pacing, her eyes narrowed. "Don't do this. Not to us." "You did it to yourselves," I said. "We're your parents," she snapped. "Families share everything, is that what you call it?" I asked. "Sharing." She swallowed hard. "Avery, please. They're freezing all our accounts. We can't access anything. They think we laundered money. We need you to tell them it was a mistake." A slow exhale left my chest. "Was it?" She blinked rapidly, a tremor in her lips. "You set us up." "No," I said. "You walked exactly where you weren't supposed to." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We never thought you'd do something like this." I met her eyes. "That's the problem. You never thought I'd do anything." For a moment, the room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Then she tried again, softer, almost pleading. "This will ruin us. It will ruin Harper." And there it was. The real fear. The real priority. I straightened. "Harper is not my responsibility." Her chin trembled. "But she needs help. She always has. You made sure of that." Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't soften the manipulation in her tone. "We can fix this. You just have to tell them the account was real. That you authorized everything." "No," I said. "I won't." "I don't understand," she whispered. I know," I said. "You never did." At that moment, her phone vibrated. She looked down, face draining of color. "They're escalating the audit," she said. "The federal office is taking over." My father's muffled voice came through the speaker, shouting something frantic. Mom closed her eyes like the sound itself was too much. I stepped closer, my voice steady. "This is what happens when you take what isn't yours." She looked up at me. Really looked for the first time in my life. Something in her expression cracked. A line of disbelief, a flicker of fear, and a realization that I wasn't the daughter she thought she could twist forever. "You planned this," she whispered. I didn't deny it. I didn't need to. Instead, I gave her the smallest, coldest smile I've ever felt on my face. And that was the moment she knew. The moment everything shifted. When my mother finally left the apartment, door clicked shut with a soft, defeated sound. Not angry, not dramatic, just hollow. I stood there for a moment, letting the quiet settle, letting the air return to its natural rhythm. The TV was still unmuted, now flashing images of my parents cornered by reporters. My father's jaw clenched, my mother blinking into cameras she couldn't control. Their perfect image dissolves in the glow of someone else's narrative. I didn't watch for long. I shut it off and walked to the balcony. Outside, the city moved on without hesitation. Cars rolled by. Someone laughed on the sidewalk below. A dog barked twice. Life didn't pause for anyone, not even for a collapsing family with frozen bank accounts. The sky was heavy with approaching rain, thick clouds pressing low over the buildings. The kind of weather that makes everything feel washed out and clean. I breathed it in. Back inside, my laptop blinked with new notifications. I opened them slowly. Each message felt like the quiet turn of a gear I'd set in motion years ago. A bank alert confirming the escalation. Another from the compliance office. A short text from Marissa. "It's proceeding exactly as expected. You're protected." I clicked through the decoy account logs, scanning every detail. The timeline was perfect. Every transaction is traceable. Every red flag was justified. A symmetrical pattern of coincidences too consistent to ignore. It was the kind of digital story investigators loved: clean, undeniable, airtight. Then I opened my real savings account, the one no one knew existed. The numbers sat there untouched, steady, unbothered. My life's work safe and whole. On the kitchen counter, a letter waited. Harper's handwriting uneven, shaky. I'm joining a financial literacy program. I'm trying to fix things. I understand if you don't write back. I'm sorry, Avery. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was recognition. And maybe that was enough for now. That night, rain finally broke open, tapping the windows like fingers. I sat on the couch with the lights off, listening to it. Then my email pinged. One new message. No subject line. No signature. Just one sentence. Your family tried to access more than the decoy account. My breath caught, not fear, not surprise, but something sharper. Something that told me this story wasn't done. And someone else was watching. If any part of my story felt familiar to you, if you've ever been the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one your family expected to carry every burden without question, I want you to know you're not alone. Some of us learn to survive in silence. Some of us learn to fight in it. And sometimes the only way to stop the cycle is to step out of it completely. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.